So today in this video I'm going to be talking about external barriers as part of the immune system. Basically what we're going to talk about is we're going to touch a little bit on disease, but then we'll mainly be focusing on portals of entry and types of external barriers that we have. So if you remember from last video, we said that the purpose of the immune system was to defend ourselves against disease. And now disease occurs when a microorganism succeeds in establishing for itself a local site of infection. So local site of infection. And basically it does this by evading or overwhelming the host's defenses. And the first line of defense are our external barriers. So before looking at what barriers our body has, let us look at the portals of entry, so the ways pathogens can get into our body. So I'll bring up a picture. Alright, so looking at this body, this diagram, we can see that there are quite a few portals of entry into our body. Firstly, there's the ears. So bacteria can get through the ears. There's also the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. And now the mouth leads to the gastrointestinal system. Gastrointestinal system. And the nose and mouth both lead to the respiratory tract. Okay. Now the skin is also another portal of entry, especially when it's broken. Like so, for example, if you get a cut, pathogens are able to get into this broken skin and infect the body. Other portals of entry include the anus, which is also part of the gastrointestinal tract, and the urogenital tract. So there's the vagina in females, the penis in males, and there's also the urethra. Now, depending on the organism, different organisms like to enter the body in different ways. For example, the herpes simplex virus, HSV, it likes entering via the skin, for example. Whereas rotaviruses, which cause things like gastroenteritis, rotavirus, they like entering via the gastrointestinal tract. Some other viruses, such as the human papillomavirus, which cause warts, they can enter via routes such as the vagina. Now that you can see that there's lots of different ways that bacteria and viruses can get into our body, let's look at the different types of barriers that our body has. So I'll scroll down to get some more space. Alright, so types of barriers. So the first type of barrier that we have are mechanical barriers. Mechanical barriers. Now, mechanical barriers are physical barriers, and these include things like epithelium. Epithelium are types of cells which make up the skin. So outside of your body, the skin and the mucosa, and that's basically all the tissue that's lining the inside of your respiratory tract and your gastrointestinal tract. So the resp tract in your gastrointestinal tract, right? And now these cells, these epithelial cells, between them there are what's called tight junctions. And as the name suggests, it prevents pathogens or bacteria from entering between these cells. Now, as you can imagine, if these cells are damaged, obviously the pathogens will be able to enter and bypass the epithelium and get into the body and cause some infection. Another type of mechanical barrier is the cilia. And what these are tiny projections. So, for example, in the respiratory tract, you have these tiny projections, and they're called cilia. And basically what they do is they work in conjunction with what's called mucus. So mucus. And mucus is a thick, viscous fluid which is produced by the mucosal epithelium. So like the mucosa we talked about. So it produces mucus. Or mucus. However way you like to spell it. Alright. And basically what these cilia do is, we'll have a little bit of a close-up. So what these cilia do is they beat upwards, so outwards, out of the respiratory tract, and basically they beat this mucus out. And what this mucus does is it traps all the pathogens that want to invade the body. So they get trapped and coated by this mucus, and the cilia beat them out of the body, out of the respiratory tract or the nasal cavity. So aside from the epithelium, which provides an external barrier to our body, and the cilia, which beat this mucus out of our respiratory tract and our nasal cavities, we also have tears. And I mean, everyone's cried before. So out of our eyes, we get tears. And basically what they do is provide mechanical flushing. So they physically flush out all these pathogens if they try to enter via the eye. And the tears also travel down a duct into the nasal cavity, where it flushes the nasal cavity out as well. Which is why you have to blow your nose when you cry. Now I'll bring up a fresh page and we can talk about some chemical barriers that our body has. So let us talk about chemical barriers. Chemical barriers. Alright. So our bodies produce a whole myriad of chemicals, and a lot of them are found on the external surfaces of our body. So parts of our body that are exposed to the environment, and they can protect us against invading pathogens. So the first one of these are fatty acids. Now, fatty acids are produced by our skin. Alright. And basically what they do is they prevent microorganisms from adhering to the surface of our skin. So basically they coat these bacteria or whatever, and it stops them from adhering to the skin and entering via the epithelium. There are also areas in our body which have low pH, and this means that they're acidic. And these include the gastrointestinal tract. So the gastrointestinal tract contains stomach acid. Stomach acid. And stomach acid has a pH of about 1 to 2, which is extremely acidic. And the vagina has a pH of approximately 3.8 to about 4.5. And this is also quite acidic. And basically the reason for having quite acidic environments is to ensure that the conditions are not optimal for a lot of bacteria to replicate or survive. Now, if this changes, obviously, then certain bacteria will be able to thrive in place of the normal bacteria that is present. Another chemical barrier that we have in our body are enzymes. Enzymes are found all over the body, but there's enzymes in tears. So as we talked about before, tears have provided mechanical flushing, so they physically flush the pathogens out, but they also contain lysozymes, and these are antibacterial enzymes which attack the cell walls of bacteria by degrading them. And aside from tears, there's also in the gastrointestinal tract, there's pepsin. Now, pepsin is a normal enzyme used to degrade protein in our diet, but when it encounters a bacteria or a virus, it's also able to degrade the protein that is in the bacteria or the virus or whatever pathogen it is, and that protects us. And finally, there are antibacterial peptides. And these are proteins that are found in the GIT, the lungs, and on the skin. Now, I won't go to too much detail about this, but for example, the examples of these are defensins and cryptins. And basically what they do is they act against bacteria or microorganisms in similar ways to these enzymes. Now, aside from these chemical and mechanical barriers that we have to protect our body, we also have host microorganisms, so microorganisms which live on our body, and they act as protection against any other infectious agents that are trying to invade our body. So we have microbiological external barriers, and basically they just comprise of our normal flora. So these basically are the normal bacteria or fungi that live on our body day to day and don't cause us any harm. And these are also known as commensal organisms. And basically what that means is they live together with us. So they live side by side. They don't cause us any harm, and we provide them with protection, etc. An example of this is E. coli, found in our gut. Alright, it's found in our GIT. And basically we provide it with a nice, safe, warm environment in our gastrointestinal tract, and it produces vitamin K for us. Now, obviously, E. coli, certain strains, if it gets in the wrong place, can make us quite sick. But normally, it's found in the GIT, and it assists us by producing this vitamin K. Now, the reason why these microbiological normal flora are able to provide us with protection is because basically they compete with any invading microorganisms and prevents them from establishing their local site of infection. And that's the main mechanism by which these normal flora protect us. So let's recap what we talked about in this video. We talked about how, in order for disease to occur, a microorganism must establish a local area of infection on our body. And then we talked about different portals of entry into our body. And then finally we went through some physical barriers, so mechanical barriers such as epithelium, cilia and tears, which protect our body. We also went through some chemical barriers such as the low pH of the stomach, or enzymes in our tears, or antibacterial peptides. Just touched on that briefly. And last but not least, we talked a little bit about the microbiological side of it, so the normal flora which live in our body and protect us from any potential infectious agents. Yeah, that's just an overview of the external barriers that are part of the innate immune system.